This video will include a demonstration of how to disassemble and reassemble the Hastings 21362 ground reel. The first step to disassembly is to remove the cable guide. It is important to make sure the reel stop is in a locking notch, so you can begin to remove the top two screws holding the cable guide and spring in place. After removing the wire guide, carefully release the tension on the reel. Next, you're going to remove the outer drum. You can do so by removing the 4 screws on the front of the plate. You are going to want to remove the excess cable and set it aside, so that you can begin the process to completely remove the cable from the reel. Now use the screwdriver to detach the 2 screws holding the metal strap in place that's supporting the cable's position. Upon removing the metal strap, take a 3/4 inch wrench and loosen the jam nut so that the cable ferrule can be removed from the clamp and the cable from the reel. Now move to the other side of the reel, where you will need to remove the outer cable connector from the copper rod. You may do so by loosening the clamp bolts with a 9/16 wrench. Also, unscrew the plastic cap. Set the plastic washer alongside with it. Now take the screwdriver and loosen the 6 screws located on the outer edge of the reel mount so that you can remove the back plate. Once you have removed all 6 screws, detach the back plate. You will then need to remove a small metal stop located just above the copper rod inside the housing. Next, you will need to remove the copper rod. To do so, you will need to loosen and/or remove 2 set screws located on the inner part of the reel. This requires a number 5 and number 6 sized metric Allen wrench. You may now slide the copper rod out of the reel and remove the inner drum plate. This has completed the disassembly process. To reassemble the reel, first attach the inner plate. It is important to make sure that this plate is put on all the way and catches the internal spring. Insert the copper rod and tighten the 2 set screws that hold the rod in place. Move to the back side and reinsert the stop just above the copper rod. It is time to reattach the back plate. It is important to tighten all 6 screws evenly, but do not over-tighten them. Slide the plastic washer and plastic cap back over the copper rod and tighten down to the threads. After attaching the plastic cap, be sure the inner plate spins freely so you can begin to feed the cable and ferrule back into the reel. Place the cable ferrule back into the clamp and firmly tighten down the bolt and jam nut. Now form the cable to align with the metal strap bracket. It is important to make sure that the bend of the strap is facing inwards towards the cable so that it may pinch the cable against the reel. Next, reattach your outer cable connector. You can now reattach the outer plate and the 4 screws, but remember, it is important not to over-tighten them. Then, rewrap the cable evenly along the reel. Once you have applied all of the cable, wind the reel approximately 4 times. It is important to keep a firm grip at the end of the cable to prevent any release of tension. Use the plastic stop to lock and hold the tension. Now reattach the cable guide and spring. The last step in the reassembly process is to make sure your cable will release and retract properly. If so, the assembly of the Hastings 21362 ground reel is now completed. For more information, log on to www.hfgp.com.